just know that you have the capacity, the will, and the power to get through it. And don't lose hope on that. Don't lose faith on that because you do. And as long as you keep that mindset, you will get through it.
Mental health champions, I'm really excited to bring on someone who is in the counseling space where he deals with so many ups and downs of students. And if you're like me, you can certainly relate to some of those ups and downs when you're going through school. So much uncertainty, so much pressure. But we've got an incredible guy I met on LinkedIn, cold networking. Stay tuned for his Pod O'Clock episode this summer because he's got an awesome podcast, Being Yourself podcast. But for today, we're going to talk all things mental health, his mental health, how he juggles work, school, being involved in the community, and then, of course, helping out the students. But this is a mental health break. Andres, welcome.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh, I'm excited to bring you on. We get a lot of courageous guests that come on, but not particularly in this space professionally where who knows if there's a lot of listeners, but there may be in the college or in the school setting where they're balancing these tremendous ups and downs. But before we get there, I need to welcome everyone tuning in today to a mental health break. Thank you for continuing to make this show a top 5% global show. My name is Vincent A. Lanci, and again, today we're joined by Andres. He's an incredible mental health advocate in his communities. If it's your first time with us, this is the show I created after being left for dead by a car when I was 21 years old. Relearning to walk and talk brought me here today to a mental health break to normalize the conversation on mental health. And Andres, he's going to help me do that today. The show is brought to you by John Ford with his Empathy card set, his Empathy app in the App Store. Head to theempathyset.com or johnford.com. Or to get your podcast started today, head to comingalivepodcastproduction.com. But Andres, it's time to dive into you. I like to dive into phases where we do in the beginning, right now, and then what's next. So if you don't mind, sharing your mental health journey from wherever you feel comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, your story is so inspiring for me that I think it's,
Thank you.
but we all have our own journey and purpose in life, right?
That's
And
right.
so one of the things that I always, as a career counselor and just as, so my background being counseling, specifically working within higher education, one of the things I always tell students and just in general, is all of our experiences are so valid, right? And so there's no one experience better than the other. It's always important to acknowledge that and be okay with that and let your experience be what it is. But, oh man, where do I start with mental health? I think one of the things for me is mental health has been such an important element or aspect of my upbringing, I think I would say. It really started there because I'm originally from Puerto Rico and my parents had divorced when we were still young and we came to Connecticut actually. And we were so young and my parents had divorced. So we saw all of that happening. And so that obviously takes a toll. And many of us who struggle with that or who go through that, right? And I think so when I talk about mental health, I think it's important that we understand that our mental health is not just what's happening right here and now, but also how has mental health impacted your life from as early as you can think about it, right? And because those are things that you want to think about because as you get older and you find ways to self-regulate, you find ways to, manage, then you also have to understand yourself and where does that come from, right? And so growing up, I think for me, I saw a lot of mental health issues in my family. Depression was very eminent in my family. And so even to this day, I have both my mom and my older brother both suffer from mental health. And so I think it's something that we still deal with it as a family, and it does impact us and everybody, right? But from there on, it's just a matter of, kind of like, how do you manage it? What do you do, right? The first step is acknowledging that it does exist. And I'm glad that you mentioned earlier about in this space, in the higher education or just professionally, we talk about it to our students all the time, and then I think it's important that since we talk about it, we should also be walking the walk, right? Talking the talk, right? And so it's important that when we talk to others, when I talk to students, that I'm also following through with what I'm saying as well. And I'm role modeling that, right? So I think that was the first step for me in general, just acknowledging what has happening in my upbringing, how understanding how that's going to impact me as I move forward in my adult life, and making those decisions that are going to be allowing me to have a more healthier, mentally healthy life, right? So that's a little bit about, I guess, my personal journey and starting with mental health at a younger age.
My show notes are already filled up and we just got started. You hit so many valuable points there. I don't know if people like these little notes I put in the description or they're not. So if you're listening on, let me know. But just you said acknowledging we all have unique experiences. No one's journey is more significant or valuable than another. I think that's so impactful. Finding ways to self-regulate. And then a big one, doing what you say, you're in this role model eyes of these students. And if they say, oh, you're not doing it, why would I? So I love exactly what you said there. Now, what would you say the most fulfilling part of your job is? I know the hard times are certainly challenging conversations and they are what they are, but I know there's a lot of positivity and brightness in your day. What do you enjoy the most?
Honestly, I think that even though that one might say those challenging moments can be stressful or just make you feel less motivated, it's interesting because sometimes I think it's those more just tough moments that I think that you find the light at the end of that tunnel. You kind of like really make sense of it and you find enjoyment in it because in many cases, it's those tough moments that you learn from and you help others. And so for me, when I'm working with students and trying to navigate them and trying to help them out, it's really that. And so when I get to see the work that we've done, because it's not just I, right? It's together. We work on this together. So when I have a student, whether it's because they're having anxiety about their future with their career, right? And we all have anxiety, it's not me just working it out for them, it's together, right? And so when I see them just getting through it and being successful, and that's acknowledging that the work that we put together, that's what fulfills me and just brings me joy. And I hope that the students or those who are impacted, because they also impact me. And so I think that's what brings me the most joy. Oh, I think you're muted, Vince.
I had the lawnmowers and everybody going outside. I edited it out, don't worry. But I think it's just incredible because I know the role models in the academic sense when I was going through my times, just that sounding board giving me that rhyme or reason. It played a major role in helping me stay afloat. Are there any tips that we can relay to our audience, maybe one or two that you give to your students to stay mentally healthy, maybe a little calmer in these tough times?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing is we have to understand where our stressors and our mental health, the things that are impacting our mental health are coming from, right? And one of the things that and I tell students all the time, or just in general, is like take a time to reflect, right? Take a piece of paper, have two columns or whatever. Usually I tell students, we have our own internal struggles and our own internal mental health, right? We have our external stressors. Those are those things that are coming at us, whether it's family, whether it's our job, whether it's the political spectrum right now, whatever that is. So we have all those external. And then we have the internal ones, right? The things that we're dealing with, whether it's our trauma, whether it's our own, figuring ourselves out, right? And so I think it's really important that we outline those and we start to pick them out, kind of like I'm sure you've heard of the locus of control or what's in your control and what's not in your control, right?
Right.
And so typically, I always kind of shed light to that because I think the moment that you start to shed light into those things with anyone who you're working with and even for yourself, right? So just pinpoint those out and say to yourself, this is really me. Where does this fit? Okay, so this is my own internal struggle. This is that. These are external things that are impacting me. Okay. And then once you identify those, put them into categories of control or not in control, right? Because then you can start to see it from a different perspective and say, okay, I have more control of this than I do of that. So maybe I need to put more of my energy on this than on that because we're not always going to be able to control everything in our lives. And so where do you want to spend more of your energy and where it's going to give you the most success or satisfaction or whatever word you want to use in terms of your own personal development. And so I say start there. That's where I usually start.
I love it. Well, personal development and fulfillment, those areas you just touched on, I might as well go right into this for you. Something you do for fulfillment and personal development is run another awesome podcast. Let's take a moment to show some love to his podcast. Everyone, be sure to add it to your queue after the episode ends. He has been doing this since 2020. So again, he will be on Pod O'Clock. Stay tuned for that. But hey, dive into it for a sec. Show us what it's about.
Thank you, Vince. So Being Yourself, a podcast I created in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, because, we were all feeling some type of feelings. But yeah, it came about in my desire to connect with people. And so, especially during that time. And so I wanted to create a space where we could have deep conversations about different experiences and identities. And so Being Yourself is a play on the word being, or bean with a capital BEAN, because I love coffee. And so I wanted to create a coffee shop experience. And I invite guests and I have conversations, and sometimes they're kind of deep conversations about who they are, and it's just an open space just to express who we are. And we have every right to be who we are and feel how we feel, and show ourselves and how we want to show ourselves. And so that's what the podcast is all about. And so I'm excited to continue that on. I just finished the second season. I know it's been about 4 or 5 years, but this takes a lot of work, and working full time and all the other stuff, it's a lot of work. So I also want this to be enjoyable. So this is an enjoyable aspect of my mental health, not necessarily trying to create more stress for myself. Right. And so I'm excited for it, and I'm looking forward to the next season. I'm working some special kind of a series that I'm working on. And so I'm excited for it. So thank you so much for mentioning it.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for you. I hope to continue collaborating with you now that we've connected. Again, one more time, everyone, do not give up on cold networking. On LinkedIn, I get tons of spammy, salesy, this and that. But sometimes if you're authentic, you might just get your message through. And I'm lucky enough to have Andres accept my message, because I simply wanted to connect with more podcasters. Even me doing it the same length as him, you always learn something new. And I love how we touched on we don't want to make this stressful. It is a lot of work. I know my boundaries and limits. So we'll dive into all of that on Pod O'Clock. So stay tuned for that. But at this point, Andres, I'd like to now talk about what's next for you. The listeners got a chance to know you. Before we find out some more advice for mental health champions, what can we expect from you? We know an awesome new season coming out for the podcast.
Yeah, so I'm working actually on a series. So I mentioned earlier, I'm from Puerto Rico. One of the things that I really wanted to do was I used to teach a course that I designed focused on Puerto Rican identity, history, race, all these different things. And I taught the course at Nichols College in Massachusetts. And so I really wanted to take all of that and create a series that was focused on Puerto Rico. So I'm looking at a short series where I've been writing a lot of the sessions for each one, and just kind of focusing on what topics I want to discuss. And I just wanted to shed light into, it's a passion of mine. It's something that's so close to me because it's part of who I am. So it feels really easy and really comfortable, because but it's also such an awe, and just kind of, it brings you back to who you are, and it just feels so good. And so I'm looking forward to releasing those soon, and hope that those who are out there listening and learn something and feel as in love with Puerto Rico and their culture as much as I do.
We got a soon-to-be 2-time podcaster on our hands, so everyone stay tuned. It's nice that you brought that up as well, making time for passion projects, making time for things that make us happy. And I think that it's a message where we're all our own harshest critic. We're all so hard on ourselves. I mean, at least for me, I'm quick to give great advice, but it's hard for me to take that same advice. So I love how we're hearing it today. Many, many great lessons, and we're still got a few more minutes. So now I like to ask this towards the end of each episode. Can you give one piece of advice to anyone out here tuning in today who may really be struggling, really going through a dark time, something to help get them back where they need to be?
I would say just know that you have the capacity, the will, and the power to get through it. And don't lose hope on that. Don't lose faith on that, because you do. And as long as you keep that mindset, you will get through it. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Mind over matter. It sounds silly and cliche, but it's true. The mindset, doing things you can do. For me, meditation's always been a challenge for me. But for Lent this year, I'm not just giving up something. I'm also trying to improve something on both ends. And for me, I'm not a 20-minute meditator by any means, but just doing a few minutes. I've got this app that whatever, it does the job for now. So definitely finding ways to keep my mindset where it needs to be in the midst of chaos. We all have adversity that comes to the top of the pile every day in different forms, different ways. So right now, 2025 hasn't been the kindest in that form to me, but I'm finding ways to navigate it, stay positive, doing things that make me happy, like hosting these podcasts. 2020, when this show took off, coincidentally before COVID, I didn't have the best of insurances because I'm an entrepreneur. My therapist went private once COVID came, and this podcast played a pivotal role in helping me stay afloat. So everyone, even as entrepreneurs, alone for the whole day, having this human-to-human interaction is so important for my mental health. And I challenge you all to do something similar. Maybe not a podcast, even though that would be great. Just finding ways to talk to someone, whether it's a stranger, family, friends, someone, to get something off your chest. Keeping it in does not do any good. But with that, Andres, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to stop by here on a mental health break. Where can we not only find you online to say hello, where can we find that awesome podcast?
Yeah, you can find it on pretty much any Apple podcast. You can find it Spotify, and Being Yourself. You can also find it on Facebook. And so you can find me on Andres Cintron on Facebook and LinkedIn, and the Being Yourself podcast. I usually use Spotify, to be quite honest, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, everyone, get to Spotify. Go check out this podcast and definitely connect with him. He's a great resource to have in your network. And my name is Vincent A. Lanci. You can find me online at my name and on social media. But today's show is brought to you by JohnFord.com and his app, Empathy Card Set. He does it all for mental health. EmpathySet.com, JohnFord.com. And if you want to get your podcast started today, head to ComingAlivePodcastProduction.com. But with that, we're taking a deep breath together. Two guys here on a mental health break. Andres, thank you again for accepting my cold message to help me connect with a fellow podcaster and coincidentally, another mental health champion doing amazing work in the school system. So thank you so much all around.
Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate it.
Of course, and everyone, once more, stick around this summer for Pod O'Clock. Keeping the show going over that many years is not easy. We're going to dive all into it. But take a deep breath today here on a mental health break.